The United States Pentagon vows to nuke Russia if they continue war against Ukraine. These are very heavy statements, and things are developing very quickly every single day. The Pentagon issued a stark warning to Russia. They said, stop the war in Ukraine or face nuclear war with America. As we know, Putin and some Russian politicians came out a few days ago saying that Ukraine is now a full-fledged U.S. colony because they are funded by the U.S. They take orders from Biden. They take orders, Ukraine military takes orders from the armed forces of the United States and the Pentagon. So they don't have sovereignty anymore. They're fully dependent, giving themselves over to the United States. They are a U.S. colony. They're being funded by the U.S. and also funded by the EU. Now, as Bloomberg reports, the Pentagon's new national defense strategy rejects limits on using nuclear weapons, long championed by arms control advocates, citing mounting threats from China and Russia. By the 2030s, the United States will, for the first time in its history, face two major nuclear powers as strategic competitors and potential adversaries, the Defense Department said in a long-awaited document issued on Thursday. In response, the U.S. will maintain a very high bar for nuclear employment, they said, without ruling out using nukes in retaliation to a non-nuclear strategic threat to the homeland, U.S. forces abroad, or allies. So allies, of course, means Ukraine. So Summit News reports, in yet another stark reversal of the senile occupant of White House basement, in his 2020 presidential campaign, Biden had pledged to declare that the U.S. nuclear arsenal should be used only to deter or retaliate against a nuclear attack, a position blessed by progressive Democrats and reviled by defensive hawks. But like with every other position held by liars in the Untruth Department, this one has just been reversed as well, as the threat environment has changed dramatically since then, and the Pentagon strategy was forged in cooperation with the flip-flopping White House in a stunning move that should spark outrage among so-called progressives, but was at best prompt some very sternly retracted letters. The nuclear report that's part of the broader strategy said the Biden administration reviewed its nuclear policy and concluded that no first use and sole purpose policies would result in an unacceptable level of risk in light of the range of non-nuclear capabilities being developed and fielded by competitors that could inflict strategic level demand to the U.S. and allies. So, meanwhile, the nuclear strategy document does not spell out what nuclear threat weapons, what non-nuclear threats could produce a U.S. nuclear response, but current threats include hypersonic weapons possessed by Russia and China, for which the U.S. does not have yet a proven defense. It does spell out, however, in the strongest terms, what would happen to another nuclear power, North Korea, if it launched a nuclear attack on the U.S., South Korea, or Japan. That action will result in the end game of that regime, says U.S. nuclear weapons continue to play a role in deterring North Korean attacks. So the brilliant neocon minds behind the report concluded it's better to install the fear of a disproportionate nuclear retaliation, thus making an outright nuclear attack far more likely. If the U.S. will nuke you anyway, may as well go all out. In the document, which was framed well before the invasion, by the way, the Pentagon says Russia continues to brandish its nuclear weapons in support of its revisionist security policy, while its modern arsenal is expected to grow further. In other words, the Pentagon knew that Putin would do what Putin would do even before he did it, and that defined the dramatic revision in U.S. nuclear posture, almost as if the Pentagon directed the entire sequence of events. So in the meantime, China remains the U.S. most consequential strategic competitor for coming decades, Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin said in a letter presenting the new defense strategy. He cited China's increasingly coercive actions to reshape the Indo-Pacific region and the international system to fit its authoritarian preferences, even as it rapidly modernizes and expands its military. China wants to have at least 1,000 deliverable nuclear warheads by the end of the decade. the nuclear strategy document says, saying it could use them for coercive purposes, including military provocations against U.S. allies, partners in the region. The nuclear strategy affirmed modernization programs, including the ongoing replacement of the aging U.S. air-sea-land nuclear triad. Among them are the Navy's Columbia-class nuclear ICBM submarine, the ground-based Minuteman III ICBM replacement, the new air-launched long-range standoff weapons and F-35 fighter jets for Europe carrying nuclear weapons. The review confirmed previous reports that the Pentagon will retire the B-38-1 gravity bomb and cancel the Sea-Launched Cruise Missile program, but the review endorses a controversial Trump-era naval weapon, the low-yield W-76-2 submarine-launched nuclear warhead, which is described as providing an important means to deter limited nuclear use. The broader strategy report also offered gently worded criticisms of major U.S. weapons programs, which often runs years behind plans and billions of dollars over initial budgets. Our current system is too slow and too focused on acquiring systems not designed to address the most critical challenges we now face, the Pentagon said. So the system is too slow, too focused. It called for more open systems that can rapidly incorporate cutting-edge technology while reducing problems of obsolescence and high costs. The Pentagon strategy documents were sent to Congress in classified form in March, so they were considered during congressional approval for the fiscal 2023 defense budget. So how to trade all of this? Well, the initial instinct now that nuclear war headlines are being lobbed around is that it may be time to sell as an art cash-in, but as Art Cashin so significantly put it some time ago, never bet on the end of the world because it only happens once, end quote. Now, thanks to the Biden administration, that once-in-a-lifetime event is that much closer to taking place. Now, the thing is, I know that the U.S. Congress has to approve war, the U.S. taking part in war. This has not happened. Please leave your comments. Thank you for your support. This is by Sean Adeltabai on News Punch. Thank you for your support. Kindly support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.